Hello everyone, welcome to episode 230 of Show Fever. Today we'll be going over chapter 16 of Haunted Peak, entitled Women. Now this chapter has a lot to do with women, because we see as Miko ends up coming up on the hill and he sees that Mayu is here, and he's like, why is Mayu here? Also he comments about how she put on makeup, so maybe she's trying to court Ebihara or something. I have no clue what's going on here. I don't know why that was specifically mentioned. But we see as she gets to talking about how her and Ebihara met up. She explains how, yeah, Ebihara is a great, nice guy, but as a miner, you still shouldn't be up here. And Miko, in his head this whole time, is asking, why is Mayu on our mountain? He doesn't say my mountain. He's come to recognize Ebihara as a co-owner of this mountain. So he says, our mountain. And she then keeps explaining, so I will be your guardian. She's like, I will be your guardian to supervise here. She's like, yeah, I'll only be able to come in between shifts, but it's good that you'll have some proper supervision. And we then see as Miko is ardently against this. He's like, no, why do I need a guardian? I don't need a guardian. I don't want you as my guardian. You're not even my family. How can you be my guardian? And so she then gives him an ultimatum, essentially. She says, well, if I can't be your guardian, you are right, because I'm not your family. But if I can't, supervise you, then I'll have to tell your mom about this. And so Miko, rightfully notices this as a threat. And when we see what Ebihara's input here, and Ebihara says that he still wants Miko to be able to come up here. So Ebihara is perfectly okay with Mayu supervising. However, Miko is not okay with this. He felt a special connection with Ebihara, and he does not want Mayu intruding upon that connection. So we see as he ends up going back down the mountain, and then we get a school scene once more. And we see as Miko is hands in his face and all, well, not hands in his face, but hands on his head, and he seems dejected and all that. We see as he heads to the bathroom, and in the bathroom he ends up running into Roka. And when he runs into Roka asks him if everything's okay, if everything's good, and Miko's like, oh, no, yeah, why do you ask? And Roka's like, well, it seems like you've been on edge every single day recently. And Miko's like, no, everything's fine. You wouldn't even understand it if I could talk about it. And we then see, as Miko ends up walking out of the bathroom, when he's walking out of the bathroom, he sees around the corner Momiji. And then he presumes that Momiji had sent Roka in to check up on him, which she had done, because as we see here in a moment, Roka ends up going back to Momiji. And she's like, why can't you just ask him to be honest with you? I'm still so worried about Miko. And Roka's like, it'll be fine, he's cool. And we then see as she's like, do you ever regret dating me? You think I'm too needy, don't you? And Roka's like, no, of course not. And we see as he then goes for her hand, and they go back to class. But before we go back to class, we see in the final panel, well, not the final panel, but the second to last panel, we see as Roka has like an apparition in his head, or appears behind him, that says, are you just going to, let women walk over your entire life? I guess so. It was something along that lines about how they presume that he's just going to let women walk over him his entire life. And then at the last panel, we get a scene where Roka looks very out of it. He looks empty. He looks mentally unwell, but mentally drained, because we see rings around his eyes and stuff like that. So that is where chapter 16 ends. Now, I feel like this chapter's going to have a lot of impact, because now we see that Miko is not going to be able to go back up on the mountain with Mayu, because he does not want to be around Mayu when he's with Ebihara, because he has that special connection with Ebihara. They have this almost brotherly bond for the mountain. However, Mayu's now intruding on this, and Mayu appears to be trying to take Ebihara, well, not necessarily take Ebihara, but I guess see Ebihara as a love interest, because she put on makeup and got dutied up before she went back up on the mountain before doing labor. So it looks like she's trying to, court him, go with him. And we also see here as Miko ultimately ends up despising Momiji a little bit more. So we see as Miko is slowly developing more and more of an aversion and a distaste for women. I believe that's why this chapter was entitled Women, because it shows Miko is slowly becoming more and more disillusioned with the women around him. So this might lead to some very, bad dynamic where Miko just hates women, which is awful, because there are good women out there, as we've seen. However, Miko is being experienced to some of the bad ones. I mean, what Momiji did here is not necessarily bad. We don't really know her motives. She does appear to have ulterior motives. However, she did appear to be just wanting to check up on Miko as a friend here. However, Mayu is directly pushing Miko off, and we don't know if it's for her to get with Ebihara possibly, or if it's really just to protect Miko. Maybe she's just using that protection of Miko as a guise now. We don't really know that. Now, I believe in the next chapters we might actually be focusing on Roka a little bit more, because we've got kind of done with our Mayu arc. So now Roka, with this, concept of him just being walked all over by women, is likely going to get some development here. I don't really like that because Roka, though he is struggling, as we can see, and he doesn't really like the circumstances that he's in, he's still a nice guy. He's still a very honorable and kind guy, as we see here with how he interacts with Momiji. So I like Roka. Roka is really cool, and I feel like he will be a good character once we get some more development on him, which I hope we get in the next couple of chapters, which I believe we will, because like I said, I don't believe Minami would have ended the chapter off like that unless we were going to get some more development of Roka. But yeah, that's all it really was for chapter 16 of Haunted Peak, entitled Women. And that's all I really have for episode 230 of Shelf Review. So thank you very much for watching.